Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about the 2008 film The Wrestler. And this film introduces us to Randy the Ram Robinson, who was previously a massive wrestling star back in the late 80s, so he's sort of 20 years past his prime, and 2 decades later he's working a menial job, living in a trailer when he can make rent, and wrestling in small local federations. A heart attack after a particularly brutal match, and I want to be clear that all of the insane thing that the movie shows him doing in that match are things that people in these hardcore federations really do inflict upon each other month after month after month. He starts to reconsider his lifestyle. He hangs up his boots, he gets a regular job, he tries to strike up a new romantic relationship, attempts to reconnect with his estranged daughter, and generally endeavours to get his life in order. But there are lots of, like the ordinary life it's a bit structured, it's a bit boring, and the lure of the ring is strong. And let's face it, Randy wouldn't be living in a trailer if he was the kind of guy who made good decisions. So his success in these efforts is very much in doubt. And that's basically what we're here to see is his efforts to find a new path and whether those efforts will pay off or not. So, as a professional wrestling fan, I was always going to go and see this film, even if the reviews hadn't been good. But as it turns out, they were very good, both in terms of the reaction of actual professional wrestlers to the authenticity of the film, and in terms of critical film response to the acting, the story, the direction. But I do want to preface, before we get into the movie, just in case it needs to be said, yes, I know pro wrestling is fake, or at least fake in the sense that the results are predetermined. Obviously, people are really doing those moves even if they're helping one another. It's But the thing is, like, the events of every movie I've reviewed in these videos were predetermined. That's what fiction is. It's predetermined stories. And there are plenty of valid criticisms to be made of professional wrestling, particularly the attitudes towards women and non-white ethnicities, for instance. But the fact that it's scripted is not one of them. Yes, it's scripted entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. But right, that done, let's talk about this actual movie, shall we? So, as I mentioned, The Wrestler picked up great reviews, both from film critics and from people within the professional wrestling industry. And unsurprisingly, that made me even more keen to see the film. I went to the cinema. I was not disappointed. I think at the core of the film's success is its excellent, highly authentic casting. Mickey Rourke is a great choice to lace up his boots as Randy Robinson. He's got the physique, he's got the physical presence, he's got the world-weary air. He even, presumably because he boxed professionally in the early 1990s, has the battered countenance of someone who's been in one too many death matches in the ring. He's ably supported by Marissa Tomei and Evan Rachel Wood, who bring the same authenticity to their performances as his potential love interest and estranged daughter, respectively. And basically, there's not a bad performance in sight. And if you're a professional wrestling tragic like me, who is familiar with early noughties wrestlers, you'll have a great time picking out all of the actual professional wrestlers making guest appearances in this as well. So that's an added bonus for like a few of us. Now, one thing I did want to discuss: Randy's obsession with reclaiming his lost wrestling glory might seem obsessive and irrational to you, and that's because it is. It is obsessive. It is irrational. The thing is, you might also be inclined to think that those two things make it unrealistic. And on that front, you would be wrong. Because you see, professional wrestling is an industry where to be obsessive and irrational is almost a prerequisite for success. Unless you have a college wrestling or football career that gets you drafted by the WWE, then even breaking into the industry probably requires you to fork over money for weeks of training, then for you to spend multiple years where you drive at your own expense to all kinds of local gyms to wrestle matches in front of a handful of people. You may not be paid anything for all of that, I should point out. And if you are paid, it probably isn't even going to cover your gas money. Certainly, you'd have made more cash just working a regular job for the time that you've spent. Travel time, you may be helping set up the ring, and then actually wrestling your match. But a regular job won't make you a TV star, and that is true. But precious few people get to that level of wrestling, and even for those who do, The job is still month after month of living out of a suitcase, driving to a new town every few days, still at your own expense in most cases, and wrestling upwards of 300 matches a year. Some of those matches might require you to be thrown onto thumbtacks or to deliberately cut yourself to sell the brutality of the fight, or, which could conceivably result in a botched maneuver that leaves you injured or even killed. It's not a lifestyle that you would sustain year after year after year unless you were obsessive and to the point of irrationality about it. Unless your passion for the industry was at that level, you just wouldn't do it. And Randy's choices, they're irrational, they're obsessive. But they're also choices that thousands of men and women do make. Recognize that, it is irrational, it is obsessive, but it's not unrealistic. It's odd, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be a professional wrestler, but it's not unrealistic. Finally, one thing I did want to discuss is that if you like a movie that neatly ties things up in a bow at the end, giving you clear answers and a triumphant finale, then this may not be the film for you. Randy's got a set of goals that are, things that he wants out of his life that are ultimately incompatible with one another. He cannot have everything on his list, and the film is about juxtaposing what he merely wants versus what he cannot give up, what he is willing to sacrifice and what he is not. His decisions are not necessarily going to match the ones that you would make in his boots. They certainly aren't the ones that I would choose. And they aren't necessarily going to give him the best overall outcomes in terms of his physical and mental health and happiness, especially in the longer term. But to me, they feel like, and here's an important word again, authentic decisions for the character as we see him on screen. So The Wrestler is definitely not the world's most upbeat and cheerful film, but it's an exceptionally well-made one. A solid meditation on desire and obsession with the added wrinkle that for a change, the obsession is not a romantic or sexual one. It's good stuff. It's not a movie I could watch every week. When I bought this DVD, it took me a long time to get around to watching it because I needed to be in the right frame of mind. But if you are in the right frame of mind, it's a really rewarding experience. So that was The Wrestler. Next time, bit of a change of pace with 1968 film King of Kong Island. Gosh, I wonder what film's coattails this cheapie is trying to coast along on. But that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.